and welcome to another booktube video from me, Lauren, from Lauren and the Books. I hope you're all doing very well today. Today's video, well, it's bookish Christmas, isn't it? March to me is bookish Christmas. We have the Irish Readathon, which I love taking part in, and today I'm going to give you my predictions for what I think is going to be on the Women's Prize for Fiction long list, which is being announced on the 8th of March. Now, I want to do a live reaction to this long list, and ordinarily these past few years, well, last year it was announced at 6:30, so lovely, perfect. Previously it's been announced at midnight, which, yeah, that's fine, I don't mind staying up for it. It's bookish Christmas after all. But I have heard rumours of it being announced at 9:30 AM. Now, I'm at work at 9:30 AM, so I won't be able to do the live reaction show that I hope to do if it is at 9:30 AM. We'll wait and see. Have a look on my Instagram, because hopefully we'll have an idea of what time they're being announced by the time this video goes up, and you'll be able to see when my live reaction video will be. If it is at 9:30 AM, I'm going to try and not look at it all day, which will mean basically not looking at social media all day, because everybody I follow will be so pumped about this. And yeah, do a live reaction when I get home from work that night. But yeah, we'll see how it goes, and keep an eye on my keep an eye on me at Instagram to see what my plans are for the live reaction video. But before the live reaction video, before the long list is announced, what do I think is going to be on the long list? The long list is historically 16 books by female authors, and they have to be published between the 1st of April 2021 and the 31st of March 2022. There is a word count, a minimum word count limit. I don't know what that minimum word count limit is, but I've tried to avoid short books, although one of them maybe won't make it, but we'll see. And yeah, here they are. I've got 16 here. Some I've read, some I haven't read. The first one I haven't read, but I've got a copy out from the library. However, it's on a 2-week fastback loan, so if I'm going to read it, I need to get me absolute wiggle on. But the first one, I think, is Love Marriage by Monica Alley. Monica Alley, author of Brick Lane, which I haven't read. I haven't read anything by Monica Alley before. I have meant to read Brick Lane many times. My sister's got a copy of it. I think I've borrowed it from her about 6 times and then just been like, oh, I haven't got around to it, sorry. But and I mean, I'm sure I'd love Brick Lane. This sounds like I'd love it even more. This is about Yasmin and Joe, who are from 2 cultures, 2 families, 2 different people, who both meet when working as doctors, and fall in love and decide to get married. And it's about, I love this line here, love marriage is a story about who we are and how we love in today's Britain. With all the complications and contradictions of life, desire, marriage and family, what starts as a captivating social comedy develops into a heartbreaking and gripping story of 2 cultures, 2 families and 2 people trying to understand one another. So yeah, it sounds amazing, and also I really like this front cover. But yeah, look how big it is. I didn't expect it to be this big, and when it arrived from the library I thought, oh wow. But yeah, strangely it's got a, I assume because they're doctors, it's got a comment from Adam Kay on the back, who says, a truly astonishing piece of writing, exquisite storytelling featuring the most human portrayal of doctors I've ever read. I defy you to put this book down. So yeah, that one, if it is on the long list, I need to start getting on with quickly, because as I said, it's due back on the 15th of March. Next up is My Phantoms by Gwendolyn Riley. This is a book that I listened to. I've got to say, the audio narration of this was perfect. Now, Gwendolyn Riley's, another of Gwendolyn Riley's books, First Love, was on the long list a few years ago. A very short little slip of a thing, and I read it. I didn't love it. This I really liked. It's a very simple but beautiful, but not even in the content itself is beautiful, but just so how simply something can be written and how much emotion and gravitas can be got across. But it's a book, shut up Lauren, it's a novella about about a mother and a daughter, and their sort of fractured relationship, and just how they don't really get on, but they meet up once a year, and this and then and how awkward that is for both of them, and how the repetition of the things they talk about and things like that. And then her mother falls ill, and her having to involve herself in her mother's care, which is a very sort of personal thing when she hasn't really seen these personal aspects of her mother's life before. And yeah, just really cleverly done. And I was mesmerised by the whole thing. And like I said, the audio depiction of it was absolutely amazing. And yeah, I'd be keen to see this on here. And I know she is a Women's Prize author shortlist. I think she might even have made the shortlist before with First Love. So there we go. Next up is another book that I've read. It's Fault Lines by Emily Itami. I really loved this book. I read it earlier this year. This follows Mizuki and her life in living in Tokyo with a husband who works very hard, and their beautiful flat and their 2 children, and just what might happen to Mizuki's life if she was to maybe get a romantic connection with somebody else. I say what might happen. This does happen, and how different that makes her everyday life. It's not a sort of long book. It's not a book about much more than that. It's very sort of, I use the word quiet for these things because there's, like I say, there's not much more happening than what's going on there. But I loved being inside Mizuki's head and hearing about her her thoughts and feelings towards this new guy in her life, but also measuring them up against the thoughts and feelings of her husband and towards her children and things like that. I really liked it. I thought it was something a bit special, yeah. Hopefully it's on there. Then The Fell by Sarah Moss. This is the one that I mentioned earlier that I think might be a bit too short. I read this last year. Pandemic novel this is. This is a novel set in, like, during COVID, told from 3 or 4 different points of view. From the point of view of Kate, who is somebody who is currently isolating as she's come into contact with somebody who has COVID. And her and her son are living in sort of very little money, and they're struggling to sort of pay the bills and to eat and things like that, and they're really sort of like snipping back on their lives to make their lives able to carry on going ahead, not having the heating on when it's really cold, or wearing extra jumpers, or just eating things that have gone past their sell by date, etc, etc. Anyway, she is isolating, and is absolutely, it's a very frustrating book to read because she's isolating, but she's absolutely gagging to get out to go for a walk, which is one of the only things that she sort of seemingly gets joy from. Annoyingly, she has a garden, so it's not like she can't get outside, and she goes for a walk in the hills and she falls, and then it's what to do with the people that then have to, the volunteers who then have to go out and find her, putting themselves at risk, not only because they're on a set of hills at night when it's dark and it's wet and slippery, but also because this woman may well have COVID. It's to do with her next door neighbour who is shielding, as she is a vulnerable adult, and her not being able to do that, but sort of still being in contact with. It just really made me feel all the sort of things I was feeling during the first lockdown, not necessarily in a bad way either. I was very frustrated with Kate, but the book itself I thought was perfectly written, and I really enjoyed it. But it might be too small, who knows, it might be too short, we'll see. Then Build Your House Around My Body by Violet Cooper-Smith. This is one I read earlier this year as well. Something else a bit special. I think with a bit of time I've grown to love this a little bit more. For me, this was a novel of definitely of 2 halves. It's about 2 women, it's set in Vietnam, and it's about 2 women who go missing decades apart. The first part of the novel is sort of setting up the scene and mentioning characters that you think you're only going to meet once, but my God, they're going to have a bigger part in the second half of the book, and it all seems very strange. There's actual body swapping, there's snakes, there's smoke monsters, there's sort of body acrobatics that I can't get my head around and things like that, and it's this massive sort of like twisty-turny tale, probably because there's snakes involved, about these 2 women who have gone missing decades apart. Again, really kept me gripped, and yeah, when I reviewed it I said, oh, I found maybe the first half a bit slow, but on reflection, now sort of like sitting with it and realising that the second half sort of revisits all these people that you're being, the seed is being planted for you in the first half. Yeah, I really thought this was very good, very good indeed. Next up, we're entering the 2 books that I'm absolutely certain will be on the list, and would be shocked if they're not, and I'm sure you'd be shocked if they're not either. The first one is Sally Rooney's Beautiful World, Where Are You? This is a proof copy. I think the finished one is blue. I haven't read this. I don't know why I've been putting it off. I've heard from a number of people that so Sally Rooney's previous novels, Normal People and Conversations with Friends, if you sway towards the enjoying Conversations with Friends more, you're going to enjoy this more. But I am definitely in the enjoyed Normal People more than I did enjoy Conversations with Friends. I don't know if that's put me off. This is on my TBR this month because I'm doing the Irish Readathon, and yeah, so if it appears on the long list, which I imagine it probably will, then we're ready and waiting to have it read. So yeah, I'd be super duper surprised if this didn't appear. Wouldn't we all? And again, similarly, I would also be super duper surprised if To Paradise by Hanya Yanagihara isn't on there. Look at the size of this. I read this, it came out in January this year and I read it. This is, again, is a proof, but I believe the front cover is very similar to this. It's got this beautiful illustration on it here. And yeah, so this is basically 3 books set in 3 different time zones. We've got it in I can't remember the actual year, 1893, 1993 and 2093, and each of these sections, and it really is basically like a third of the book, and it's fucking massive, has the same, they use the same character names and they're in sort of similar situations. There's themes of basically everything in here: climate change, slavery, cultural appropriation, racism, love, just so much. Pandemics are in there as well. I liked it. I don't think I loved it, but I think Hanya Yanagihara is very beloved, and I would be surprised if this wasn't on the list. Then I've got one here which is sort of like a wish list one, but also like I wouldn't be surprised if it was on there. So last year, this sort of a little bit of back history. So normally these books are quite literary, but last year there was a Dawn French book on there called Because of You, and I read that and enjoyed it, and it was sort of like the first sort of like time I've ever seen a sort of commercial fiction or a women's contemporary fiction book on this long list. And it got me to thinking, why, like, this is called the Women's Prize, why aren't there more books like that on these? And they're not necessarily my favourite books, but like, why are all these focuses on these books so literary and things like that? And I was thinking about a book that's come out this year to much sort of anticipation and parade, because it's a sequel, and that's again Rachel by Marion Keyes. So this is a women's contemporary fiction book. They're always massive. I have it on audio and I'm going to start listening to it shortly again because I'm doing the Irish Readathon this year, and this is a sequel to Rachel's Holiday. I don't actually know what's going to happen in this book, and I've sort of avoided the plot because I've just wanted to sort of like immerse myself in it. I read Rachel's Holiday last year, really loved it. It's a book about addiction, and Rachel having to go into, what do you call it? Rehab. Rehab to get over her addictions. But Marion Keyes writes families and friendship and relationships so bloody well. And I'd love to see a Marion Keyes book on the Women's Prize for Fiction long list. So yeah, maybe this is going to be the year for her. This was out in February. And yeah, I hope it's as good as, I haven't read it yet, but I hope it's as good as Rachel's Holiday. So yeah. Let's see. I really hope it's on there. I really do. Next up is Great Circle by Maggie Shipstead. This is a book that all of the videos that I've watched so far of people doing their predictions for the Women's Prize long list, everyone's mentioned this book. It sounds to me, it's got sort of like plain bad heroine vibes, in that it's about a woman who was a famous aviator who flew, I don't actually know what time that's set, but like sort of ahead of her time basically, and her sort of, well, ahead of her time. She was a female pilot when there's not many female pilots around even now, and we're following her, and we're also following an actress who is playing her in a biopic of her life. So yeah, for me, I'm getting sort of like that reminded me of plain bad heroines, in that we're getting 2 sort of time zones with somebody playing another character. I feel excited about this. Again, it's a chunker. I got it out from the library, didn't get time to read it, and I've had to send it back. It's on its way back to me, so hopefully that'll be on there. And like I said, there's been sort of like great acclaim. A lot of people, like every single video I've watched so far, has had somebody mention, people have said that they think it's going to be on there. And then we've got Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield, and this is a queer love story about Miri and her wife Leah. Leah has returned home to Miri after a deep sea mission that ended in catastrophe, but however Leah seems very different on her return home to Miri, and it says whatever happened in that vessel, whatever it was that they were supposed to be studying before they were stranded on the ocean floor, Leah has carried part of it with her onto dry land and into their home. Mermaids, queer love story, sounds great. Very excited about that. So there we go. And then we've got The Island of Missing Trees by Elif Shafak. That's another book that I've seen a lot of people mention. I've never read any Elif Shafak and I would love to. So again, reservation on the library on this one. And this is a love story set in the 70s in Greece, no, in Turkey, and it's following two in the same probably way it's similar to Love Marriage, in that it's got two people from very different backgrounds in terms of religion and culture, and their love story there. It also has themes of nature in it, I believe, and maybe food writing. I think somebody said it was quite heavy on the food writing as well. So yeah, sounds, and like Alicia Fack, beloved, isn't she? So yeah, hopefully that'll be on there as well. Then we've got Memphis by Tara M. Stringfellow. This is out in March, but I don't know when in March. Might well not be out yet. This is a proof copy. This is about 4 women, Hazel, Miriam, August and Joan, and they are the women of the North family will leave a legacy in this southern city. And this is about, so it says here, Hazel was 9 months pregnant when her husband was lynched by his Memphis police squad. Miriam had to leave her violent marriage for the sake of her 2 girls. August turned her back on her dreams so that she could provide for her family. But these extraordinary women of the North family also fry green tomatoes and gut catfish and tuck their children in at night and do hair and sing all the while. And now Joan is back where it all began, Memphis. She can't change her family's past, but can she change her future? So yeah, it also says Memphis is a celebration of the enduring strength of female bonds, of what we pass down from mother to daughter. Epic in scope yet intimate in detail, it's a vivid portrait of 3 generations of a southern black family, as well as an ode to the city they call home. Sounds bloody fantastic, doesn't it? So yeah, hopefully that'll be on there as well. And then Matrix by Lauren Groff, I think may well be appearing too. I've only read the very famous one, Fates and Furies, by Lauren Groff. This is historical fiction, and this is following, oh, excuse me, oh, the end papers are absolutely lovely. Look at that. Wouldn't you love that as a tile in your kitchen, or just anywhere? 17-year-old Marie, too wild for courtly life. Sorry, I'm reading these, but I haven't read them, so I'm not as familiar with the plots as I might be. Is thrown to the dogs one winter morning, expelled from the royal court to become the prioress of an abbey. Marie is strange, tall, a giantess, her elbows and knees stick out ungainly. At first taken aback by life at the abbey, Marie finds purpose and passion among her mercurial sisters, yet she deeply misses her secret lover Cecily and Queen Eleanor. Lots going on. Born last in a long line of women warriors and crusaders, women who flew across the countryside with their sword fighting and dagger work, Marie decides to chart a bold new course for those she now leads and protects. She will bring herself and her sisters out of the darkness into riches and power. Matrix is a bold vision of female love, devotion and desire from one of the most adventurous writers at work today. Also, nice front cover. Very good. Then I've got The School for Good Mothers by Jessamine Chan. This is also out in March. I don't know if it's out yet, but it's out in March too. And this is about Frida, who is she's a struggling mother, and she's got a daughter called Harriet, and she's really struggling. And one day she's thinking there's something she needs to do at work, and she thinks, well, if I just leave my daughter for an hour, I'm going to be an hour. It's an hour. I'll be back. I've just got to go and pick something up. I know where it is on my desk at work. I'm going to pick something up and come home. When she comes home, she finds that everything is not okay, and her daughter's been taken away from her, and she is enrolled in the School of Good Mothers, where she is taught how to be a good mother. It sounds interesting, and it says it's an explosive and thrilling novel about love and the pressures of perfectionism, parenthood and privilege. So yeah, sounds like a great premise, doesn't it? It almost sounds like a thriller, like very, very good. And then the last two, this one I feel very excited about. Once We Were Wolves, I think it's called. Maybe I've got that title wrong. Maybe it's Once There Were Wolves. Hold on. Once There Were Wolves. Once There Were Wolves by Charlotte McConaughey. And this is a novel about wolves being reintroduced back into Scotland, because they used to be native to the land and gradually they've been driven out and killed, etc, etc. This sounds amazing, and sort of like nature writing and this sort of like reintroduction of species and stuff. I feel like it will be full of like interesting information to learn about, as well as a novel that's chronicling something that I feel very interested in. So yeah, hopefully that'll be on there. And then lastly, I've got Keisha the Sket by Jade LB. This is from Stormzy's publishing house, and so Keisha the Sket is a sort of started off as fan fiction on the internet. Jade LB wrote it when she was 13. She created this character when she was 13, and yeah, she did it on a sort of online platform. When I look at it, it's all sort of like written in sort of text speak and things like that. And this is the collection of the sort of Keisha the Sket stuff that she's written, fiction that she's written, interspersed with, and this is what makes me wonder whether or not it will be eligible, with essays and other pieces of writing by some of my faves, Candice Carty-Williams being one of them, Caleb, Femi, Aniofiok, Epudum and Any. Yeah, so that's what makes me wonder. This is another one, as well as the Fell one, I'm thinking maybe that's too short. Like, this has got essays in it as well as fiction, so I wonder if it will make it. But if it does, how exciting to read something that sort of like is such a book of our time, really, to be something that was released on the internet and now revisited it, and just, yeah, great. So maybe that'll make it, who knows. So there we go, 16 books that I think are potentially going to be on the long list for the Women's Prize for Fiction. Let me know if you have read any of these books, what your predictions are. Do you think any of the ones that I've mentioned are going to be on there? Do you have one that you're absolutely certain will be on there? Can't wait. As I said, keep an eye on my Instagram to find out what my reaction video is going to be like, whether or not it'll be a live show or whether or not it'll be another video or whether or not I'll do it later. Who knows, we'll find out. And I'll see you all again soon for another BookTube video. Goodbye!